So thank you for coming first and foremost to listen to my work around the living system. I am so thrilled to be here with you all. I am coming in from Adelaide in South Australia. It is officially how we like to introduce ourselves here is to say that I am coming in from the lands of the Kaurna people on Kaurna country, and I honour elders past, present and emerging for the capacity for me to live, love and work on this land and honour any other Indigenous person in this room, as well the lands that you're all on. So that in Australia is one of the ways that we like to introduce ourselves so that we know both, where we're coming from, but also honouring the lineage that brings us to here in this space. So the One Living System, let me give you a bit of a journey to this point. I have done many things over my lifetime, studying many different areas, body, soul, spirit sort of thing. By trade, I am a counsellor and consultant, both in metaphysics as well as in wellness and well-being. And so over the years, I have worked as a coach, as in a physical coach in strength and conditioning. I am a counsellor. I do all sorts of different things. And when we came to this moment in time in this meta-crisis, polycrisis, whatever way we're going to term it, what I understood was really witnessing this merging of all of these different aspects of our being converging in one time in amongst what was happening globally as much as what was happening to each of us internally. And so one of the things I really saw was the desire for community and connection again. And it especially became relevant during that COVID time when we were removed even more from everything that was happening around us and really isolated even more. And it started to really, especially in my work, I saw so many people around this isolation that it wasn't just that they saw that they were being isolated now, they discovered that they had been separated and isolated for a really long time. And that meant that it was now being really exacerbated and highlighted as the fact of, oh my goodness, what I actually thought was all this community and connection going on around me before wasn't actually as real as I thought it was. I wasn't as deeply connected to everything as I thought it was. And what people started to understand was not only were the people around them sometimes not their people, but also they realised that they were disconnected from much more than that. So I started to dive really deeply into that, looking at all the things that I had worked in, all the areas that I had understood and worked in for so many years, and looking at why this was happening in amongst this enormous crisis of, environmental issues, climate change issues, climate crisis issues, boundaries of the earth that were being exceeded, all of these words and terms being thrown at us, and all of us going, oh my gosh, what does this mean and where do I sit within this all? And one of the things that continued to come up was this throwaway line that everybody started to use. Living systems. We need to get back into alignment with the living systems. We need to be able to work with living systems. What is that? We can't just have this throwaway line. Where do we connect to that? What is it? What does it actually mean? And I kept finding that this throwaway line landed in this empty space. It landed in nobody actually having any form of connection or commitment to this living system. I've been a meditator for well over 30 years, as many people in Human Array have, and am a trained Kriya Band in Kriya Yoga, which is a lot around breath and everything. So one day in my meditation, the revealing of this living system came to me. It went all over walls, it went over paper, it went everywhere. And at first I was really sitting back going, what on earth has come through? What is all of this? Started to try and piece it all together and make sense of it. And one day sitting at my desk, I'm sitting there typing along, and all of a sudden, you know how we get these senses and everything else? We all receive things in different ways, typing away, and all of a sudden I'm like, what? Are you serious? We're going to write a book? I don't know if I want to do that. Like, we really feeling like doing that? That's what we're doing. So I started to pull it all together, and it became this enormous project. And by enormous, I mean, like, I had written before and written, books that were probably sitting around 50,000 words. This has come out as like 130,000 words. This is, like an enormous manuscript, a manifesto of what the living system is. So what I wanted to do was be able to give life a voice. And I understood all of a sudden that that was my role in this, to actually be able to give life a voice. And it's wonderful now the way we have, from a legality perspective, people talking about ecosystems and a river having, legality now, or a mountain having legality now. This is more than that. I don't want us to have legality. It's fantastic in a legal sense, from from an outside perspective. I want us to give life a voice because we are life and we are connected to that river, so that there is no separation from that. What I started to realize was, in everything that had been given to me in writing through, was this deep understanding that the sacredness of who we are is exactly the same as the sacredness that is life. There is no separation, and yet we've been led to believe that we are completely separate from nature and from all other things. And I go in the book to just, in the first part of the book, really describe this separation from both colonialism, but also in our human language and definition. Humanity doesn't include nature, and nature's definition doesn't include humanity. So already we're told we are these two separate entities that don't belong together. Whereas, in fact, we are one sacred thread that is through all things. All of life is an expression of life, and we are all a part of it. How do we reconnect into that so we understand that sacredness, first of all? And why is that important? The why is that important, I'll talk about first, just because simply it brings us back into our space as the role we have as humans in life, as caretakers, as stewards, as shepherds, as lovers, as people who are here to be able to bring forth all other expressions and essences of life, and to honor those things and to give them space to allow them to be just like humans get time to allow to be. That we have all of our kin in animal and our brethren in trees and plants and everything else being able to be loved and respected by us as much as we do going to the supermarket or buying our food, which has become this egocentric, human-centric capacity that we think of mostly now, just around, what do I need? How can I have it now? What can I, do for myself now? As opposed to really deeply thinking about the whole of life. So through the book, I journey through talking about why we are here in this capacity, but then really importantly, introduce what the living system is and talk about her values. And what I started to understand was that this was not simply something for us to try to mentally, intellectually work through. This is life's expression. This is a language and a conversation she's having with us every day. And it actually reveals that she has this beautiful philosophy and ethics through which she lives. And she has her own management of things that, because of the way humanity has stepped out, and mostly colonialism has brought us about, we've created this system that runs over here that is really built for humanity and nothing else. And we are cattle grid into that right from the very earliest stages, stepping into the education system, right? Herded into which way we should go and how we can conform and sit within that system. And yet, it's not necessarily the system that we actually belong to. We belong to this enormous system that actually functions outside of it. And it's a beautiful language that life is having with us every day. It's a conversation. We are so busy and noisy over here, listening to how we have to fit in, how we have to go to work every day, how we have to do all these things, achieve, succeed, do all of this, that we forget this actual conversation and language of life that's happening with us every day. And when we step out into that, we all recognize that. We all recognize this deep connection we have to life and to everything else around us. Some people find it in the ocean. Some people find it in the mountains. Some people find it in the forests. But there is this deep sigh and deep belonging and deep connection we have to everything else around us. And it's a sense and it's a feeling and it's a deeply ingrained part of us that once we know it and find it, we can't let it go because we know that it's there. And so what we then want to do is to start to really build that thread. And as we pull on that thread, the deeper we go within ourselves, we understand that we are a part of that exact same sacred life essence. As much as the trees, as much as the animals, we are all in that same essence and resonance of life. So how do we step back into that? How do we become one with that again? Especially when we are so dominated by this other system that's functioning alongside us. One of the big things that I love to talk about around the living system is the importance of, once we understand our deep connection and our sacredness, and once we understand our place amongst it, we care for it more. We want to help it more. We want to nurture it more. We want to love it more. And that it isn't just, the river that's running through our community. It is everything that's in there. It's the critters, it's the creatures, it's the people, it's the water itself. It's the sun, it's the moon, it's all of those things, from soil to our soul to solar systems, everything functioning through as one energy. And we allow ourselves then to actually have a capacity to care for the scenario that we're in right now in a completely different way, because we are it. We see ourselves amongst it. And so we actually want to be able to rejoin what is naturally our place and step back into that. So as we get to the minute of the book, we start to see that there's two things that we can do to really work with that. One is to understand our sacredness and do the work of unraveling ourselves, decolonizing our minds, allowing ourselves to step back in to knowing our sacredness. Once we know our sacredness, we recognize it in each other and everything that's around us. We honor ourselves as being these sacred beings that we are. And then to uphold that, we create a whole new capacity around our wealth. And our wealth is not this human constructed WEALTH and it's money based. It's WELLTH. It's our wellness and our well-being. And that means that as we care for the nurturing of ourselves, because we now recognize ourselves as one and whole, we're caring for everything around us as well. So we uphold the whole system by the fact that we are honoring our wellness and well-being and honor the wellness and well-being of everything around us. So it becomes a much more natural and easy process for us to step back into. So we don't have a lot of time in these moments to talk about this, but all I wanted to ask of everyone to do is to start to consider the possibility that there is another language that is life that is happening around us. There is another conversation from life and her essence and her truth that is happening around us. And how can we willingly step back into that and see ourselves as a part of that sacredness, that we aren't separated from that, we are in truth one with all of that. And from that space, start to work into living as this one living system with all of life around us, and where we can start to nourish and nurture ourselves as a part of that, and life and everything around us as a part of who we are. So I guess part of, what I wanted to do here is be able to offer that PDF, but in amongst it, also be able to step in and honour our capacity in the human ray to really be able to take ourselves on a journey and do that. And perhaps even for those who might be interested, read through the book and have a human array book club that allows us to work together through this and really be able to look at all the aspects of how we can actually step back into this living system in our own body, but where we are in our own location and everything as well. So I'm really sorry that you can't see pictures, but I will put in the PDF for everyone to be able to see. I know we don't have a lot of time. Are there things that you would love to ask about, you know, a capacity around the living system or your place amongst that? Go for it, Lydia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting so lit up by what you're talking about and your energy for it and the truth of it. And I'm so tired of hearing myself say this, but it's real. I think that is my nature, what you're describing, and I think I've always known it. And I've never bought into the other. But we live in a culture where you have to pay bills and you have to have money. And I don't do it well because I'm so tuned in. I'd rather be in the woods. And so, can you speak to that? Like, or is it in the book? I need to just read the book of how can we be in both worlds until we correct our course, until we live in the real world.
Yeah, this is a great question, and we haven't got long. So I'm going to briefly say yes, there is a part in the book that talks about what the living systems economy is, and it's around communion and it's around sharing and exchange and giving. But how do we practically do that where we are and in a way that we can start to lessen our dependence on this system over here and bring ourselves back into? It's an enormous part of the conversation and too big to be able to, you know, fit in before this cuts us off and we all have to dash back into the breakout room. But one that I would absolutely love to continue to have, Lydia, around the steps that we can take. And a part of that is building the system, you know, some form of action outside of the system that is money as an economic system. And the best way I have found at this point in time is what's called commitment pools. And so discussing that is really important in the human array because it's the one space that we have the capacity to really build things like commitment pools and really support and help each other in so many ways going forward. So, you know, let's take that conversation onto the platform where so many other people can, you know, really partake in it and support each other on so many different levels.
Mm. Thanks, Carrie. I also really love the idea of a book club with your book. That sounds amazing.
Great. Yeah, let's do it. Let's start reading through and Sarah can jump in and, and get motivated to keep going.
Yes, let's do it. I know, because I've been wanting to read the book. It's open on my computer. So that would be awesome. And I would love to go through it.
Thank you very much. This is wonderful.